At a number 10 spot, we have the Mount Baker Theater. Opening up in 1927, the Mount Baker Theater in Bellingham was haunted from day one. Unidentified sounds, chilly spots, strange disembodied voices, balls of light, and even the odd apparition are just a few of the stories that have been noted here. As well, many guests have reported the ghost of a young woman named Judy here, and it's said that she has constant crushes on male visitors and will choose to usher them into their seats if she does have a crush on them. People know it's Judy when they begin to hear their names across the floor and feel as if someone is touching them on their back or shoulders. Another spirit trapped in this hotel is a cat that is found in the basement of the theater. Many claim that whenever they go to the basement and catch a glimpse of this cat, something is bound to happen, as with any black cat theory. Oddly enough, Mount Baker Theater keeps a ghost light on stage during the off hours, claiming that they ward off the evil ones from the theater, but who really knows if this works like they say they do?
But what haunts the theater is as varied as the witnesses who felt it. Maureen believes it could be the spirit of her son Michael, a theater employee in love with the building.
After he died, I was in here at a performance one night, and I felt a little tugging right up here in my hair. And I thought, oh, it's Michael.
Margaret believes it's an impish woman named Judy, who may have lived on the site long before the theater was even built. This may be a ghostly picture of her.
I think she's nice. I don't think she's malicious, but I think she does like to tease, especially the men that are here alone.
At a number 9 spot, we have the Maury Island incident. Weeks before the infamous Roswell accident, Red Krisman and Harold Dahl had their own encounter that shocked many people at the time. It all started on June 24, 1947, when pilot Kenneth Arnold claimed to see a string of 9 shiny unidentified flying objects traveling around 1,200 miles per hour past Mount Rainier. After it got nationwide attention, many people came to say that they too have seen the UFOs flying. Eventually, the story would be relayed to Red Krisman and Harold Dahl, who both claimed to have fragments from the supposed UFO they saw. When they interviewed Harold, he would go on to say, quote, "On June 21st, 1947, in the afternoon about 2 o'clock, I as captain was steering my patrol boat close to the shore of a bay on Maury Island. On board were 2 crewmen, my 15-year-old son and his dog. As I looked from the wheel of my boat, I noticed 6 very large donut-shaped aircraft. They also made a claim that they were approached by a man in black later on who told them to never speak of the incident again. Eventually, the FBI started to investigate this case and stated that this incident was a hoax, but who knows? This really wouldn't be the first time the US government was hiding UFOs, right? Number 8, the Black Cat at Stevens Hall. Built in 1895 in Pullman, Washington, the Stevens Hall was once praised as the quote, most beautiful building on the campus. But once people started stepping foot inside, they took back these claims. Kind of like when you meet someone that is physically attractive, but just has a terrible personality. This is that place. It all started as a hangout spot for students at Washington State University. Here they would dance, drink, and tell stories to one another. One story told at the hall was Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat. It was read on Halloween every single year until one year the students believed the story had come to life. Eventually, many people would see sightings of this black cat in Stevens Hall. Then on one Halloween, a black cat stood in front of the house's mother's door, which is basically the person who runs the house, and when the students opened the door to see what the black cat was hiding, they found that the girl behind the door had passed away, and many people believed it was caused by this black cat. Number 7, the Iron Goat Trail. In 1893, a railroad was constructed across the Cascades of Washington. This would be great news because it would finally mean that Seattle would be connected with the Midwest and many other states. Except once trains started to use this railroad, they ran into many problems. To begin with, trains with engines on each end had to struggle up switchbacks to reach the summit. And the worst part was, since it was in the mountains, snow could reach up to 25 feet high in some places, which would just have hundreds of people digging out in the snow in order for the train to go through. Then in February 1920, the deadliest avalanche in American history hit the railroad, derailing carts and killing a total of 96 people. And at a time, the rescue mission was nearly impossible due to the extreme weather conditions present on the mountain. Now many hikers come across the area where the accident occurred, and many find themselves leaving immediately the moment they got there. This is because some hikers have reported hearing noticeable noises, screams coming from the tunnels, while others have spotted apparitions of men looking zombie-like walking towards them. All these components make this place one of Washington State's most haunted places. Number 6, Port Townsend, Washington. Considered to be one of America's most haunted cities, Port Townsend definitely has a dark history to back up that claim. The thing about this place is that paranormal activity isn't in a single building or two, but they say that spirits roam freely around the town and there's not a place in town where you don't have the chance to see a ghost. For example, the Manresa Castle located in the city was once visited by ghost adventures and they supposedly captured children's laughter on film, as well as feeling as though someone or something was pressing against them the whole time. Then we have the Palace Hotel, which used to be known as the Palace of Suites due to the women who used to live there, but many visitors claim these women never left. Well, that is their spirit, of course. They say a woman in blue exposes herself to guests and staff members while the other spirits try to play pranks on other people. And last, we have the Rothschild House, which is Washington's most haunted museum, where the former family members of the home seem to not like having strangers inside of their place. Guests have reported things ranging from slamming doors to seeing some of their former family members in their rooms. Regardless, this town is extremely beautiful, but if you decide to visit, try to avoid some of the ghosts I just mentioned. But it looks like you really can't because they're everywhere. In the hump of our list, we have the Caddy of Cadborough Bay. Wait, did you think we can escape the Loch Ness Monster? Because we just can't. There's one in every single state. And for Washington, they have the Cadabrosaurus, nicknamed the Caddy. It is said to be a 20-foot serpentine beast that inhabits the northern part of the west coast. It's described as having the head of a horse and the body of a very large eel. Eyewitness reports have been coming in for the past 200 years with 300 different sightings. Even the Inuit people drew this creature on their canoes in hopes they could ward it off once they entered in the water. As with all these Loch Ness Monster hypes, people claim to have found and captured ones, but eventually it gets to a point when you can't even tell what's real and what's fake. So at the end of the day, you guys have to be the judge of that.
There's a whole family of these darn things.
Last year, he shot this video of what looks like a sea monster.
Okay, just keep watching. Now watch. Its head's gonna come out. Its head's gonna pop out. Check this out.
It's blue. So those aren't sea lions. You've seen sea lions. Held up. It's got humps that are.
They're 20 to 30 feet long. They're long, skinny things.
Oh, that is no. What the heck is that?
Number 4, Bigfoot. Yes, the hairy creature has made its way back onto this list simply because this is the state where it was first documented and popularized. To this day, this is the state where the most sightings are recorded, so it's either everyone is just lying in Washington, or there may actually be a Bigfoot in their woods. Bigfoot has gained worldwide attention, but for those who don't know, they're basically 7 to 8 feet tall hairy humanoids with extreme strength. To this day, the search for Bigfoot is still a mystery, and there has never been solid evidence to prove the general public that such a beast could exist, other than these footprints, but I don't even know if they're real. You could just draw it out with your hand. But hey, if you live in Washington, you have the best chance of actually discovering one, but that outcome would probably not be good for you because they're not that much a friendly creature. Number 3, Tacoma Old City Hall. Serving as City Hall in the early 20th century, this 10-story clock tower is haunted by a single prankster ghost named Gus. Many don't know the origins of this ghost, but it is said that he may have been a former criminal that was held in the building's old city jail and passed away there. So as I mentioned, this building served as City Hall until 1957. This was a time when the City Hall was being neglected, no maintenance, no payments, so eventually the building was too unsafe to work in. Nowadays, visitors of the old City Hall claim that prankster ghosts have taken over the building. For example, Gus is known to toss objects in the air at random, turn on lights on and off, and sometimes he would just completely shatter light bulbs. At one point, the sightings were so frequent, the police believed it was a real person trespassing the property, but upon further investigation, it was discovered that no one was even there. Some even say that Gus haunts the clock tower and they are known to randomly ring the bell every so often, but it's usually at night when the building is completely empty. Number 2, Kel's Irish Pub. Considered to be a family-friendly bar/restaurant, the Kel's Irish Restaurant and Pub is said to be one of the most haunted eateries in the entire nation. To start, the pub is located in the Butterworth building, which is a former mortuary, so you kinda know where this story is going. This would basically mean that the entire building was used to store deceased bodies. Throughout the years, many spiritualists have been brought to the Butterworth building in an attempt to initiate meaningful conversation with alleged spirits who remain there. Nowadays, visitors report sightings of a ghost of a young girl dressed in a scarlet velvet dress there. Others have spotted the ghost of an older gentleman as well, named Charlie, who would just appear at random throughout the entire building. Basically, this means that if you decide to visit this place and eat here, chances are you're probably going to encounter something supernatural, but don't worry, because they say that the spirits here are mainly positive, so not much to worry about, right?
But there's some things here that I'm starting to think about though. You tell me your mom is extremely superstitious. You told me she puts holy water behind all the bars here. do you think her being that way may actually be attracting some revolt with the spirits here? And maybe that might be linked to her being pushed down the stairs.
In that sense, I hadn't really thought about it as far as...
That's the first thing that stuck out in my mind, though. Yeah.
Number 1, the 13 Steps to Hell. Built in 1901, the Maltby Cemetery in Woodingville, Washington is said to be one of the go-to cemeteries if you want to experience some sort of paranormal activity. The most famous legend about the cemetery is the story of the 13 Steps to Hell. The stairs appear to lead to nowhere and descended into a ground as they are located in the center of the cemetery. They allegedly led to an underground family tomb. Even though you were only a few feet away, it was said that when you went down the stairs, you abruptly lost the ability to hear anything above you or around you. It is said that if you turn around and face the bottom of the stairs, you could catch a glimpse of hell yourself. Local lore claims that occasionally people would descend down the stairs and just never come back up. Even though the steps were removed many years ago, there are still stories concerning them, and many people don't even know the real mystery behind these steps in the first place. Number 10, the Red Lady of Huntingdon College. The Red Lady of Huntingdon College is a legendary ghost that is sent to haunt the former Pratt Hall dormitory at the Huntingdon College in Montgomery, Alabama. According to Wyndham and historian Daniel Barefoot, there have actually been 2 ghosts referred to as the Red Lady. The first Red Lady was described as a woman in a scarlet dress and parasol, who walked wordlessly in the halls of the women's dormitory, bathed in a red glow, due to her father's will specifying she attends her mother's alma mater. Martha was shy and unhappy and struggled to make friends at the college, leading her to become increasingly aloof and bitter. Despite the efforts of the dormitory president to befriend her, Martha remained isolated, often wandering into the rooms of other students and casting a chill upon groups. Her behavior grew increasingly strange as she would visit dormitories during the darkest hours of the night, never speaking but only staring into space as if in a trance. One evening after Martha had not been seen for the day, her former roommate found her dead in her room. It is believed that she had taken her own life, but rumors circulated that her ghost continued to haunt Pratt Hall. Students reported seeing her walking up and down the halls, opening and closing doors, and staring into space. The Red Lady's ghostly encounters continued for many years, and now she's become a well-known legend at the college and the entire state. Number 9, Deceased Children's Playground. The Deceased Children's Playground in Huntsville, Alabama is a pretty intimidating name for a seemingly innocent-looking playground. According to local lore, many children who died during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic in Huntsville were buried in Maple Hill Cemetery, which adjoins the playground. Some people believe that the spirits of these children come out to play in the playground after dark, which has led many to report of unexplained movements and ghostly sightings in the area. For those who don't know, the Spanish flu pandemic was a global disaster, killing an estimated 50 million people worldwide, including many in Huntsville, where the disease arrived on September 25, 1918. Within the 10 days, it had spread to the general population, and hospitals were filled with patients, leading to doctors working long shifts to try to ease their suffering. As a result, many families were quarantined in their homes, and to prevent the spread of the disease, parents told children to keep the windows closed. This resulted in the rhyme, I had a bird, its name was Enza, I opened the window and influenza. Although there is no official count of the number of children who passed away in Huntsville during the pandemic or how many people were buried in Maple Hill, it is likely that hundreds perished, leading to this park being extremely haunted. Number 8, Hell's Gate Bridge. Hell's Gate Bridge in Oxford, Alabama is considered to be the most haunted bridge in the state. The bridge's name was inspired by the legend of a young couple whose car drove off the bridge and into the waters below in the 1950s. According to the legend, if you stop on the bridge and turn off your lights, a member of the couple will enter your car and leave a wet spot on the seats. This eerie story is why the bridge is considered to be very haunted. But it is not just the couple that haunts Hell's Gates Bridge. It is also said that if you stop on the bridge and look over your shoulder, the road behind you will resemble the fiery gates of hell. This frightening tale has led many visitors to the bridge seeking to experience the supernatural for themselves. Although the Oxford Paranormal Society conducted an investigation in 2007 and found no evidence of paranormal activity, there are still many locals who claim to have had a ghostly encounter at this bridge. Despite the bridge's reputation, local officials have closed it off to any sort of vehicles due to safety concerns, but visitors are able to still walk across it if they dare. While the old bridge is falling apart, it is an unforgettable experience to walk on it, even in the daylight. Whether or not the stories behind the haunted bridge in Alabama are true, the legend of Hell's Gate Bridge continues to live on and attract visitors from far and wide. If you are brave enough to walk across this historic bridge, you will be forever changed. Number 7, the Sloss Furnaces. Birmingham, Alabama was founded in 1871 with the aim of becoming a major center for America's industrial age, taking advantage of its rich deposits of iron ore, coal, and limestone. The city was nicknamed the Magic City, and one of its key attractions was the Sloss Furnaces, built by James Wither Sloss in 1881. The furnaces were dangerous and men worked 12-hour days facing danger at every single turn. Many workers died from accidents, including falling into molten steel or suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning. There's even a story of a worker who was dragged into gears during his lunch break. The furnaces were known for paranormal activity as well, with reports of screams, apparitions, and the presence of slag, which is a cruel foreman. On September 9, 1887, worker Richard Jowers fell into molten steel and was incinerated. It is rumored that his bones were removed, but his remains were lost completely. Today, Sloss Furnaces is a national landmark and still echoes with the sounds of his perilous past. It is possible that the workers who lost their lives at these furnaces still haunt the grounds, reminding the city of their sacrifice. Number 6, the Downey Booger. The legend of the Downey Booger dates back to the late 1800s in Winston County, Alabama. Known for its rugged men, whiskey, and Saturday night dances, Winston County was also infamous for the strange creature that had been sighted by John and Joe Downey while they were returning home from a dance. The creature, which had both human and animal-like features, had frightened the cousins' horses and caused them to run in the opposite direction. Later, a family returning from a church service and Jim Jackson, who was transporting moonshine to a mining town, also reported encounters with this creature. Jim Jackson fired twice at this creature, causing it to scream like a woman and limp on 3 feet. A posse formed to find this creature, but all they found were traces of blood leading from the sand bed to a distant cliff. The true identity of this creature still remains a mystery to this day, and its strange appearance and haunting screams continues to be retold among the residents of Winston County. In the hump of our list, we have the Alabama White Thing. The mystery of the Alabama White Thing has been the subject of much speculation and storytelling for nearly a century. Originating in the Triangle region between Morgan, Etowah, and Jefferson counties, this creature is described as being over 7 feet tall and covered in long white hair. It is known for its lightning fast speed and eerie screech that sounds like a woman's scream or a panther's roar. There has been numerous sightings of the White Thing in Happy Hollow, Walnut Grove, and Moody's Chapel. Some people believe it could be an albino Bigfoot or a large albino bear. Peter J. Gossett, a historian of Winston County, heard the story of the White Thing from his aunt, Fenata Martin Smith. She told him of a man named George Norris who had a close encounter with the creature in Enon Graveyard. According to Smith, Norris described the White Thing as having the appearance of a lion with a bushy, slick tail. He said it was looking at him when he woke up one morning to find it laying next to him, but it didn't seem to pose a threat. Number 4, the Drish House. The Drish House in Tuscaloosa, Alabama has a rich history that dates back to 1837. Built by Dr. John R. Drish, a physician and prominent home builder in the area, the 2-story Greek Revival style home was once part of a 450-acre plantation. Drish employed slave artisans for his plasterwork projects, and his success in the field led him to marrying a wealthy widow named Sarah Owen McKinney. But the Drish House is not just known for its rich history, but also for its notorious reputation as being one of the most haunted sites in Tuscaloosa. The spirits of the original occupants are said to still haunt the house, including Dr. Drish, Sarah Drish, and Catherine, which is the daughter of the Drish family. In 1969, author Catherine Tucker Wyndham published a book about 13 ghost stories in Alabama. And the second chapter, called Death Lights in the Tower, tells the story of a mysterious phantom fire that occurred on the Drish House Tower after the passing of Sarah Drish. Number 3, the Bear Creek Swamp. Bear Creek Swamp, located in Autauga County between Prattville and Autaugaville, has been a source of ghost stories for many years. A woman who is said to be searching for her missing child is said to roam the swamp at all hours, with some claiming that the baby drowned there and others saying that the children was kidnapped by indigenous people. According to the legend, if someone visits the swamp at midnight and chants, "I have your baby," 3 times, the woman will appear, kind of like Bloody Mary. Many people have reported sightings of apparitions that resemble indigenous people and early settlers, as well as phantom lights and cackling laughter in the area. The legend of Bear Creek Swamp becomes more intriguing in November 2014 when the Autauga County Sheriff's Office recovered 21 dolls that had been mysteriously stuck into the marshland. Although the Sheriff's Office never determined who placed the dolls there, officials just believed it to be a Halloween prank. But was it really? Number 2, the Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment. This experiment was designed to observe the effects of syphilis when untreated. It was conducted in 1932 by the US Public Health Service with 600 African Americans recruited from Alabama. The men consisted of 399 with latent syphilis and 201 as a control group with no syphilis. They agreed to the study because they were promised free healthcare, which they never got, and were originally told that they were being treated for bad blood. These men were given only placebos such as aspirin and mineral supplements, rather than being treated with penicillin, which was the recommended treatment at the time. Many participants of the study died, went blind, or got driven to insanity, while others suffered other severe health complications due to the untreated syphilis. The story ended up arising back in 1972, and by that time 28 more participants perished. 100 had passed away from related issues, 40 spouses were diagnosed with it, and the disease got even passed down to 19 of their children. Despite an apology from President Clinton in 1997, the damages had already been done. Number 1. Hugging Molly. The small town of Abbeville in Alabama is known for many things, but one of its most famous legends is that of Hugging Molly. According to the local folklore, Hugging Molly is a tall figure dressed in all black, including a wide-brimmed hat, who wanders the street of Abbeville at night looking for children to hug. Although the origin of the legend is unclear, there are several different theories as to who or what Hugging Molly really is. One theory is that Hugging Molly was a woman who lost her own child and as a result goes after the local children to make up for it. Another theory suggests that Hugging Molly was a professor at the Alabama Agricultural School and her intention was to keep the students safe by getting them off the streets at night. There's also others who believe that Hugging Molly was murdered in cold blood on the very street she now haunts and is trying to fulfill some. Despite the frightening appearance of this haunting Molly, there has never been any reports of harm caused by her. In fact, she's almost a part of the community and town history, with local residents even being named after her. With so many different interpretations, it is really difficult to determine the truth behind the story of her. But one thing is for sure, on a cold, dark, and rainy night, Hugging Molly still roams the street of Abbeville, seeking out children to hug. At a number 10 spot, we have the ghost of Mr. Chu. Once upon a time in Dover's Green, Delaware, there was once a man named Samuel Chu who served as the chief justice in the town. Despite his position, the townspeople made fun of him for his name, pretending to sneeze whenever they saw him. You know, like, Chu? This constant teasing eventually took its toll on Samuel Chu after he passed away in 1743. It seemed that his death didn't bring him peace, as his ghost soon started haunting the town immediately. The first person to report an encounter with the ghost of Samuel Chu was farmer David Hendricks. He claimed that on a cold autumn night, the ghost appeared to him dressed in the judge's robe and white powdered wig. As the farmer was on his way to the tavern, the ghost chased after him, causing him to run home in terror. The story of the ghost quickly spread throughout the town, and soon after, residents reported sightings of this apparition as well. Over time, people in Dover became afraid to leave their homes after dark, and the once thriving taverns in the town started to empty out. The tavern owners became worried about their livelihood, and so one of them, Mistress Van Loon, called the town meeting to discuss a solution. She suggested that the ghost could be laid to rest by giving him a proper burial. The town agreed, and Samuel Chu's ghost was given a grand funeral in an ornate grave. Although the ghost was said to be satisfied with his new resting place, there was still tales of him roaming the streets and tormenting those who made fun of his name by sneezing when they hear it. Number 9. Fort Delaware. Fort Delaware, located on Pea Patch Island in the Delaware River, is a piece of American history that has been preserved to this day. The fort was first built in 1859 with the purpose of protecting the ports of Willingham and Philadelphia during the Spanish-American War. During the Civil War, it was also used as a prison camp for Confederate soldiers. The conditions at Fort Delaware were brutal, however, and many prisoners perished as a result, leading to reports of ghostly apparitions and strange occurrences that still persist to this day. With nearly 13,000 prisoners kept in wooden barracks, conditions at this fort were inhumane. Food rations were small and almost inedible, water was putrefied, and prisoners were subjected to torturous conditions, such as officers throwing rats in the crowds for their amusement. Scurvy, smallpox, and severe malnutrition were widespread. It is not surprising then that many of the 2,700 men who perished at the fort, as well as those who lived to be freed, continue to haunt the prison to this day. Visitors to the fort report a range of supernatural activities, ranging from being tapped on to feeling as if someone is breathing directly on them. So if you dare, you can actually take a 5-hour tour here for paranormal purposes only. Number 8. The Shelbyville Swamp Monster. The legend of the Shelbyville swamp monster has been known to the residents of Delaware since early 1960s. According to the tale, a grotesque creature dwells in the Great Cypress Swamp, terrorizing locals and visitors alike. However, the truth behind this legend is far more intriguing than the story itself. In 1987, it was revealed that the entire monster hoax was created by Ralph Grapperhaus, the editor of Delmarva News, and his friend Fred Stevens. Grapperhaus, who is known for his love of a good prank, Stevens, who was 26 at the time, dressed up in a costume made of his Aunt Dorothy's old raccoon hat, a mask, and a club, and then hid in the shallows of the woods. He would jump out at passing cars on Route 54, creating the illusion of a monster inside of the swamp. The news of the alleged monster sightings soon spread like wildfire, and a photo of the Shelbyville swamp monster even made the front page of the Delmarva News on April 23, 1964. Stevens even participated in the hunt to find this creature, adding fuel to the fire of the hoax. However, Stevens eventually stopped the charade out of fear for his safety. It wasn't until 23 years later that the truth behind the legend was finally revealed. Despite the revelation, residents continued to report sightings of the monster in the Great Cypress Swamp. Some people believe that the creature was not entirely a hoax and that a monster still may be roaming the foggy shadows of the swamp. In the 1920s, a couple of hunters reported hearing loud, inhumane screaming followed by sounds of something large and heavy racing towards them. This has led some, including local author Andy Nunes, to question if there may be some truth to the legend after all. Number 7. Catman's Grave. The Long Cemetery, also known as Colonel Armwell Long Cemetery, is located at the end of an old dirt road in southeastern Delaware. It was established as a family plot for Colonel Armwell Long, who served in the Revolutionary War, and his family after his death in 1834. The land was later turned into a public cemetery in his memory, with Armwell being the first official burial. One of the most famous stories related to the cemetery is that of the Catman. The Catman was a former caretaker of the cemetery who lived in a nearby home and was known for chasing away any teenagers who came to the cemetery to cause any sort of trouble. After his death, the Catman was buried in an above-ground tomb in the cemetery, but even in death, he continued to watch over the cemetery and was still said to take care for it. However, the tomb was torn down in 1994 due to vandalism, and the Catman was given a regular in-ground burial. People who saw the tomb before it was torn down reported seeing strange scratches on the inside that were said to resemble those of a cat's claws. It is believed that if someone knocks on the wall of the cemetery 3 times, they will summon the Catman, who will cause a visitor's car to fail, making it difficult for them to leave. Despite no longer being the caretaker of the cemetery, the Catman is still said to have no patience for anyone messing around in his cemetery. Number 6. The Old Maggie's Bridge. Located on Woodland Church Road in Seaford or Woodland, Delaware, it is known for being one of the most haunted roads in the state. This is what it looks like in the daytime. Looks pretty normal. Well, you're wrong, cause this short bridge holds a dark and eerie history, as it is said that a young woman named Maggie Bloxam was decapitated in an accident on the bridge in the late 19th century. To add to the horror, her grave can be found in a local cemetery, with the cause of her death being listed as young and pregnant. Maggie's spirit is believed to still haunt the bridge, searching for her lost baby and possibly her head. According to local legend, if you visit the bridge at night, you should get out of your car and yell into the night, "Maggie, Maggie, I have your baby." People have reported seeing figures moving about the woods on either side of the bridge, and photographs often come back with orbs dancing in the dark, and it is said that the best time to visit the bridge is during a full moon, when Maggie can be seen in all of her ghostly glory. There are multiple accounts of cars acting strangely on the bridge, with engines failing to start, gears shifting out of place, or the car moving on its own after the engine has been turned off. These experiences has led regular paranormal investigations at the site, and many locals swear that Maggie's ghost is still very active and can be seen on the right nights. In the hump of our list, we have the Pukwudgie. The Pukwudgie is a mythical creature from Wampanoag folklore, originating from Delaware and Prince Edward Island. According to the legend, the Pukwudgies are a human-like creature that can appear and disappear at will, and they also have the ability to shapeshift, use magic, launch poison arrows, and create fire. They are known to cause trouble for those who annoy them and are considered to be hostile to humans. Native American folklore suggests that the Pukwudgies were once friendly to humans, students, but then turned against them out of jealousy towards the cultural heroes Michelle and Granny Squanids. Ever since, the Pukwudgies are said to have kidnapped, attacked, and blinded their victims, and now are labeled as dangerous creatures. They are known to have caused mischief and torment to the Native American community, and are said to have killed Maushop's 5 sons, while some variations suggest that they may have killed Maushop himself. Whether or not you think they are good or not, they are definitely a creature best to avoid. Number 4, the Zeewanhendiao mermaid. In the early 17th century, Dutch settlers attempted to establish a settlement named Zeewanhendiao in what is now Delaware, USA. Although the colony was short-lived and destroyed after a single year, it is now remembered as the first European settlement in the area. To commemorate the 300th anniversary of its founding, the Zeewanhendiao Museum was created, showcasing the history of southeastern Delaware. And this thing, yeah, I don't know about that. This is a supposed mummified mermaid that was given to the prominent Martin family by a sea captain and eventually lent to this museum. The mermaid, however, is not the beautiful mythical creature that one might expect. Instead, it has a simian face with large rigid eye sockets and a wide toothy mouth. Its hands are clawed like a reptile, and its torso is covered in bony ridges. The creature is small, less than a foot in length, and its skin and scales are ashy gray-black. But in reality, not to burst anyone's bubbles, the mermaid is a clever taxidermy specimen that bears a closer resemblance to a Fiji mermaid made classic by P.T. Barnum. This tradition of taxidermied monsters can be traced back to the Misemono, a type of carnival in Old Edo, which is modern-day Tokyo, where mummified mermaids and other supernatural creatures were displayed as carnival attractions. These creatures were believed to bring good luck and fortune to attendees, and were often constructed from the bodies of fish and small monkeys dressed with paper mache, wood, and lacquer. Over time, these fake mermaids, or ningyo, made their way overseas and became popular curiosities for sailors from America and Europe, where the folklore behind the creature was lost, leaving a blank canvas for new mythologies to be written. Number 3, the Addie C Inn. The Addie C Inn in Bethany Beach, Delaware is a charming Victorian-style bed and breakfast that was built by the Addie family in 1902. This historic establishment is also known for being one of the most haunted places in the state of Delaware. One of the most famous hauntings at the Addie C Inn is that of a copper bathtub in room 1 that vibrates mysteriously. Guests have reported experiencing the tub shaking violently, and the story of the shaking tub has become one of the most well-known tales associated with the inn. There are also reports of eerie organ music heard coming from room 6, despite no organ being present in the room. Guests have reported the ghostly apparition of someone running through the hallways at night, accompanied by the smells of perfume and the sounds of mysterious music. Room 11 is believed to be haunted by Paul Dulaney, a former handyman who worked for the Addie family, while Curtis Addie's ghost is said to roam the roof of the inn, restless after falling to his death from the roof many years prior. Number 2, the Governor's Mansion. The Governor's Mansion, also known as Woodburn, is a grand and historic building in Dover, Delaware. This stately abode was constructed in the late 1700s by Charles Hidyard III and has served as the official residence of Delaware's governors for many years. But there's more to the story of Woodburn than just its impressive exterior. For generations, people have whispered about the ghostly happenings that seem to occur within its walls. The first recorded instance of paranormal activity dates back to just 25 years after the house was built, when Charles Hidyard III passed away. According to the legend, the owners of the mansion at the time invited a Methodist preacher to stay with them. During a morning prayer session, the preacher requested they wait for the other guest who was staying in the guest house. The couple claimed that there was no one else visiting, but the preacher went on to describe his ghostly roommates in vivid detail, matching Charles Hidyard III's appearance exactly. Since then, many have reported strange and unusual occurrences within the mansion's walls. Some say that the ghost of Charles Hidyard himself still roams inside of this building, and that if you leave a glass of wine on the stairs for him, you'll find it drained by the morning. Other ghostly sightings included the screams of a slave who was caught and killed near the mansion's porch while running from slave hunters, and the ghostly figure of a young girl dressed in a gingham dress and bonnet carrying a candle and roaming the grounds. Whether you're a paranormal enthusiast or simply a lover of all things historical, the Governor's Mansion is definitely worth a visit. Number 1, the Dead President's Hub. The Dead President's Hub and Restaurant in Willingham, Delaware is a popular gathering spot with a rich and spooky history. The pub is located in a historical part of the city and is known for its presidential memorabilia and paranormal activity. Despite being in business only since the late 1990s, the two-story space has a long and varied history, having served as a private residency and several other businesses, including bars over the years. Visitors of the pub claim to feel a dark and heavy presence, with strange occurrences such as glass rattling on their own and rooms becoming extremely cold all of a sudden. Late at night, employees have reported hearing childlike giggles and witnessing dishes flying across the room. One ghostly figure that is rumored to visit the pub regularly is Lemonade Mullery, who is said to have died from a fall in the bathroom in the 1960s. Several paranormal investigation teams have been drawn to the pub to study the ghostly activity, and they all agree that the place is teeming with entities that feel like they're part of the staff. At number 10 spot, we have the Skin Tom. This is a well-known one across the entire state, so I apologize in advance if I don't do the story justice. But somewhere in Wallen, Tennessee, a young man named Tom was living a very privileged life by many of our standards. He was a very good-looking person, he was funny, and very intellectual. Basically, a giga-chat. Being like this, he attracted many partners, but after every single one, he was just never satisfied. It wasn't until he met a girl from the town over where his whole perspective changed. He admired her beauty over anything and became enticed immediately. But there was one thing he didn't consider. She was already married. And Tom being Tom, he still went after the girl. Eventually, the lady's husband will become aware of this affair and decide to track down Tom to get his ultimate revenge. So one day he followed his wife to Lover's Lane as she was meeting up with Tom. And when the two hugged, the husband came out of nowhere and grabbed Tom from the vehicle and carried him into the woods. When the cops arrived, they found a full suit of human skin hanging from a tree. Now if you go to Lover's Lane, you may catch a glimpse of Tom's horrific skinned body, but that's only if you're unfaithful. At number 9 spot, we have the Pine Haven School. Somewhere in Jamestown, Tennessee, there's an abandoned all-boys school that was the site of many horrific things back in the day. The legend of the school goes that a group of bullies were bugging and taunting another classmate inside of the bathroom. At first, they were just shoving him around and calling him names, but the abuse just didn't stop there and only proceeded to get worse. It was then one of the boys stuck behind him and pushed him straight into the bathroom mirror. After coming into contact with the mirror, he immediately shattered it, causing a shard of glass to cut his neck, killing him within minutes. In an attempt to cover up their actions, they decided to put the body underneath the floor beds underneath the sink of the bathroom. And after that incident, the bullies were caught, but the students of the school said that the boy's spirit never left the bathroom. There were many claims saying that if you went into this boy's bathroom and looked into one of the mirrors, you may catch a glimpse of his bloody apparition staring behind you. In some accounts, people claim to be pushed by an unseeable force when looking into this mirror. But it all doesn't matter now, since the school was abandoned in the 90s. At number 8 spot with the Flintville Monster. During the 1970s, a creature described to look like Bigfoot was terrorizing the people of Flintville, Tennessee. The monster would come out of the forest and begin to slaughter people's livestock, abduct children, and even go after and attack people's vehicles. The first sighting was in April 1976 when a woman decided to call the cops and report that a 7 to 8 feet tall hairy creature had come out of the forest, came straight to her car, pulled the radio antennas off of them, and then proceeded to jump on top of the roof of her car. This story would kickstart the legend of the Flintville Monster, and many people would come out to report their own experiences with this creature. At number 7 spot with the Chickamauga Battlefield. The second bloodiest battle in the Civil War happened in southeastern Tennessee. This battle started in September 1863, and by the end of it, there were more than 34,000 lives lost, and many of the injured Union soldiers were left on the field for weeks, only to be buried into unmarked graves by their enemies. The sight of restless souls is why many believe that they still linger on the battlefield, awaiting another potential conflict. One of the spirits found on the battlefield is the Lady in White. Many see her floating across the field, looking down as if she's looking for her husband who passed away during the war. However, the most infamous ghost found on the premises is known as Green Eyes. Locals believe that only his head was found in the rubble, and when they looked at it, they immediately noticed his piercing green eyes. Ever since they discovered his remains, he has appeared to people walking on the battlefield. This is either in the form of a headless man or a half man, half beast with sharp fangs and notorious green eyes. At our number 6 spot, we have the spear finger. In the mountains of Tennessee, the Cherokee tribe told a story that haunted people for generations. It was said that a vampiric humanoid would walk along the nearby river and creeks looking for children. They would do this by shape-shifting themselves as an innocent, fragile old woman, and when the children began to trust them even a little bit, they would use their spear-like finger to stab directly through the child's heart. Yeah, I know, pretty brutal. From here, they would consume their favorite part of the body, which is the liver. But apart from their tendencies to hunt, they're also said to have the power to control any stone, no matter the size. This creature could fuse 2 stones together just by using its mind, and could even place large boulders above their victims with ease in order to completely squish them to death. Eventually, a great council was created to put an end to the spear finger. Once they trapped the creature, they noticed that arrows and knives did nothing to their stone skin. It wasn't until a bird landed on the creature's right hand when they began to notice that she carried her heart there. They began to direct their aim towards her hand, which eventually ended up killing it, ending the curse of Spearfinger for good. In the hump for our list, we have the Tennessee State Prison. Built in 1898, this castle-looking prison was open for almost an entire century, and during its time, it housed many of America's most notorious criminals. It was a maximum security facility, but it was also notorious for their poor living conditions and their constant riots. For example, in 1902, a group of 17 prisoners would break out of their cells and start a riot within the jail, with one of the prisoners being murdered and 2 of the 17 prisoners actually escaping. Then in 1939, another jailbreak occurred with the prisoners setting fire to some areas of the prison, including the dining room, which ended up killing a few more of the workers and other prisoners. Then during the years 1975 to 1985, there were countless other riots and jailbreaks within the prison. People who have previously visited the old Tennessee State Prison have described what they think to be the sounds of cell bars clanking, spine-chilling cries, and footsteps that seem to echo throughout the halls when no one else is there. Eventually, the prison would be abandoned in 1992 due to its inhumane conditions and the fact that the building was completely unstable. At number 4 spot, we have the Shiloh National Park. With another Civil War battlefield on this list, we have the Shiloh National Park. This place is located in southwestern Tennessee, and many locals claim that the spirits of the soldiers still occupy the grounds. The Battle of Shiloh occurred in 1862, which had a total of 100,000 American soldiers with over 20,000 casualties. After the years following the war, many visitors to the national park claim that this place is one of the most haunted places in the state. This is because some say that when they're in an isolated part of the field, they hear war drums and the sounds of muskets firing in the distance. Some even claim that the nearby pond randomly turns red, symbolizing the blood of the men who passed away there. In the cemetery nearby, it holds as many as 3,500 Civil War soldiers, with over 2,000 of them being unnamed. After that many deaths in one certain place, it's really no surprise that there's something supernatural happening. At number 3 spot, with the Orpheum Theater. Built in 1928, the Orpheum Theater in Memphis, Tennessee has been the stage for performers and audiences to this day. As years went by, many watchers report small bits of supernatural activity, ranging from being tapped on the shoulders by unseeable forces to being whispered from underneath their seats. So as the reports started to pile up, psychics and other paranormal investigators decided to investigate the theater. After their findings, they concluded that there were at least 7 spirits that made the place their home. The most famous out of the 7 is a woman named Mary. Story goes that in 1921, there was another building standing on the grounds of the Orpheum Theater, which was named the Grand Opera House. Here, 12-year-old Mary passed away right in front of the house after being caught in a hit-and-run accident. Now she is spotted by the majority of visitors, notorious for wearing old-fashioned clothing and dancing around the theater when someone is performing. At number 2 spot, with the ghostly bride of Rotherwood Mansion. Frederick Ross, the town's founder, is also the owner of the Rotherford Mansion in Kingsport. Ever since moving into the mansion, his daughter Rowena lived a very miserable life, losing both her first husband to yellow fever and then her second husband on the day of their wedding. She eventually had a daughter after her 3rd marriage, but as time went by, her daughter too would pass away. Rowena was overpowered by her sadness and ultimately committed suicide. It is thought that she now haunts the estate. The ghost is now known as the Ghost Bride because it is thought to wear all white clothing walking around the grounds. At number 1 spot, with the Bell Witch Cave. This one literally has the word witch in its name, so you know there's probably nothing good about it. According to the legend of the Bell Witch, in 1804, a farmer named John Bell moved his wife and his kids to a farm along the Red River in northern Robertson County. The property also included a cave, which became known as the Bell Witch Cave, believed to be haunted by the spirit of a witch named Kate Batts. This woman felt she was cheated by the Bells in the land purchase and ever since carried a strong dislike for the Bell family. Then when John Bell passed away under suspicious circumstances, people believed it to be the witch who was supposedly hiding in that very cave.